Good morning.
Good morning.
Jenny, I saw you pointing at your headphones. Are you having issues?
No, I think I'm okay. It was a little quiet. Maybe someone else could say hello to me and so I can hear. Or not.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay. I'm
There
good,
he
thank
is.
you.
All right. So, how was your weekend?
It was great. I'm wearing lipstick in honor of the Emmys yesterday. I don't know if anybody else watched the Emmys or not, but
You're wearing. That's a big deal for you.
I love TV. I love stars. I love, even if you're a D celebrity, I don't care. I'm still going to be excited if I see you
I like that.
I
like
at
that.
Disneyland.
I think everybody should have been watching that Chiefs-Ravens game last night. That
Well, I
was
watched that
way
too.
better.
I watched it too.
She watched that too. She doesn't leave the TV. Let's not get crazy.
Well, right.
From the minute she gets home at 5 till Monday morning at 8:30, she's on that TV.
I had a lot to fit in.
Oh, jeez. All right.
No,
so,
good.
I didn't tell you anything today
No, nothing.
about this book.
Right.
This is Bonnie St. John's book, Live Your Joy.
I love the name.
I again had no idea what I was getting into. I picked it up and I said, you know what, this looks interesting. I read some of the reviews on the back. And then I opened it up and I saw this. And it says, To Chuck, Win with Joy, Bonnie. And I'm trying to figure out, because I feel so bad, who gave me this book?
So did Bonnie Morris sign it, our agent, and pretend like it was from Bonnie?
Bonnie, is this you? So I really don't know who gave me this book, but I'm feeling really bad.
You
So-
should feel really bad.
I know, but it's from 2009, so like I dug it out.
Oh.
It was an older book, but it was
Okay,
cool when I started reading it, so I thought I would pick on it anyway. So, all right, so I'll jump right in. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so and I'm going to ask you guys to kind of jump in with any comments that you have because it's a little autobiographical,
Okay.
but it's not meant to be. You know, it's about living your joy and stuff. But so you know, and some of it's like right out of the gate. I can tell you it's a little bit, it's a little heavy. Some of it.
Okay, okay.
So it starts out just talking about kind of her past, and she grew up in New York in a very, very poor neighborhood, very, very poor area, very poor, molested, double amputee, both legs.
Her?
You know, kind of a divorced single mom, like very, you know, very kind of tough upbringing. Watching, you know, kind of watched her parents, you know, start and ended up buying a house. Now the cool part is like she lives down here in San Diego, and she ended up becoming quite a story though. Like as I started to read more about her, she's like the definition of one of those people that is kind of an overachiever, and I'll tell you a little bit more about
Okay.
why. But her big question, and when you read the epilogue and all that stuff on this is, you know, do you radiate joy? Mm-hmm. And can you radiate joy? And how is that possible when the whole world seems like it's against you? I would say you radiate joy, by the way, Jenny.
Thank you.
And I'd say anyone that's on this call knows, you know, that she does. And probably no matter what's happening, you can always stay positive, which is a gift,
Thank
really.
you.
So she goes on, and it starts out with her talking about her first apartment and how her first apartment was so small that like she had a card table that she used for a dining room table, and she would take that dining room table and she would fold it up so that she could put out her recliner so that she could sit in her living room. The room was so small. You know, she joked that
Was it in New York or
yeah,
did it say?
yeah. She joked that you know, the apartment that she lived in was, you know, so small that the carpet, to replace the carpet, was less to get a Happy Meal at McDonald's than to do the whole thing. So, and it starts out by her talking about kind of this big man that was sitting in her apartment, and this man was kind of heavy set, dirty, stinky, sweaty,
Why was he in
sitting
her
in her
apartment?
leather chair that was her only chair that she really had there in her apartment. And she said just sitting across from him, she could smell his breath and how disgusting he was and how demanding he was and how mean he was. And finally she said, this is my apartment, out. And so she kicks him out. And then he goes out, and about an hour and a half later, door knocks again. And she goes, and I knew I shouldn't open it. She said, and I opened it, and it was him. She goes, and he walks in, and he's like, I'm hungry. And he goes, make me a sandwich.
So they were dating?
Well, hang on.
Or
That,
what?
that you couldn't figure it out.
I-
And she's
oh,
like,
oh,
and so
okay,
make me a
okay.
sandwich.
Okay.
And she's like, and he's like, well, it sure looks like you sure have put on, you know, some weight since the last time I saw you, huh? You're eating healthy, huh? You know, and look at your hair. It looks like a rat's nest. Like, what's going on with you? You know, you're a disaster. You're a mess. And I see these projects you're working on. They're junk. You know, and So finally, you start to realize that this guy is a metaphor.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and
okay.
he's a metaphor
Okay.
for that person that we have in our ear.
Yes.
That person that's kind of constantly beating you down. That person that sits on your shoulder, that is in your ear telling you that you're fat. Telling you, oh, you gained 10 pounds, you know, that tells you you don't want to go out and about because what are people going to think? You can't wear that. What are people going to think? You can't do this. What are people going to think?
Were you in my brain this morning? What's happening?
Was he there?
I think he was that fat.
So that's where it starts out. And she's saying, well, with this guy, how am I supposed to overcome and create joy when I constantly have this person putting me down all the time and telling me what a piece of crap I am? You know, it's called Live Your Joy, Teresa. Live Your Joy by Bonnie St. John. And so it just starts to, I mean, I started getting scared, you know, thinking like, who is this guy? Why would you let this guy in your life? But I think we all have him. And so it goes on and on about worrying about what people think. And she starts out just by laying it all out on the line. And she says, joy comes from the inside out. And when you can figure out a way to make yourself happy on the inside and put it out, it intensifies everything in your life. When you're happy, the grass is greener, colors are brighter, food tastes better, people are funnier. You know, it goes on and on talking about how when you do carry that sense of joy, how much just brighter and lighter your life is. So this whole book is about how you can, from the inside out, emanate joy.
Okay.
And have the world be a little greener and food taste a little better and all those sorts of things. So she calls it a shared experience along her way of discovering perpetual joy journey. That's kind of what
That's a sentence.
Yeah. So, by the way, this guy's name, the one that sits on her shoulder, Mr. Smelly. So you're gonna hear me talking about Mr. Smelly.
Okay.
Okay.
Yikes.
And then she also talked about, for example, so this guy's in her ear. She has a cousin, and the cousin has 3 small kids. And she's never liked the way that she deals with her kids, that she talks with her kids. She, for example, would take all the money they had and go get cosmetic surgery and then lose her car to repossession. And then all of a sudden her ex-husband would come and bail her out and get her out of trouble and all that stuff. And she would call, you know, over and take the nephews out to the park or to a movie or to something like that. And they just loved it because it was an escape away from the house living with them. And then they would just say, oh, we got to get back, because she would play the victim as a mom, and they would have to get her back because they felt they had to protect her and take care of her.
Right.
So she said, I could let things like that zap my joy, like that cousin zap my joy, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to let that happen. And another section that she talks about is, as she gets older, she had 1 daughter.
Okay.
And that 1 daughter, she said she was at a swim meet, like when her daughter first started swimming. She said she would watch her, and she was too scared at the beginning, just learning, you know, to swim, to even dive off into the swimming, so she'd have to get into the pool and do it. And so she said that she finally started watching her, and after a month and 2 months and 3 months, she goes, I was at a swim meet, and I saw her. By this time, she was diving in, and you know, and there the race starts, and all of a sudden, her daughter's in the front, and she's like screaming at the top of her lungs. She can't believe that like her daughter's going to win, and this is crazy. And she goes all the way, and you know, and she wins the whole thing, and got enough points so that the swim team actually won the meet, you know. And she just said it was like the coolest thing like I'd ever seen. And she said when it's over, she was trying to save taxi fare, and so she asked the coach, would it be okay if I jumped on the bus with you guys? And he said, well, and the daughter's like, oh, absolutely, you're coming, Mom, and grabs her and puts her on the bus, and everybody's sitting down and starts talking about, oh, this is so-and-so and this is so-and-so. And she said, I just got to sit on the bus and like be part of her life, and she wanted me there, and she was so excited. And she said, it's probably one of the best moments of my entire life. I get that. You get that?
Oh, yes.
To be all up in it? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so her daughter was just excited, and she said, well, that was a big moment. So she started realizing, she goes, that's the first time that I really felt joy. She's like, okay, what's going on here? What am I feeling? What's happening?
Wow.
Right? So that was kind of it. And then I'm going to jump back to those 3 boys.
Okay.
So those 3 boys that we're talking about, and I'm mixing up the story a little bit, but those 3 boys, she said that one of the things that she had with those boys is waffles.
Okay.
She said, so this is a sign of joy. And she goes, it was all about waffles. And even to them, to this day, now that they're older, it's waffles. And she said, we were watching Shrek. And on Shrek, you know, Donkey comes into the house, and
my
Shrek finally
favorite.
says, you can
Donkey.
sleep in the house tonight, you know. And he's like, oh, that's so great. We're going to do this, and we can play some games, and tomorrow morning, I'm making waffles. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember him
Yeah,
saying
oh
that.
yeah, for sure.
And he goes, so that was it. He goes, okay, so hey, everybody, we're going to make waffles, you know, because they love Eddie Murphy, right? And so, so now waffles is their thing. So every time they get together, every time they see each other, every time they do anything, she makes waffles. She goes to the store, she gets the best like cream for the waffles and this and all that sort of stuff. And it just, every time they come over, they have waffles. And she said, so now when they come over, waffles brings joy to that situation of all of us having that in common. When they come over, it's waffle time. So again, just starting to touch on the ideas of joy, right? And how she can do that. And she starts to talk about how joy and happiness is hide and seek. She says, finding joy is like hide and seek. She said, some days it's tough to find.
Yeah.
It's really tough to find that joy. And then, you know, the walls are closing in, there's problems, there's issues, there's no escape. And she said, but eventually, she said, you got to stop, you got to look around. She said, and you have to decide, I want to grin ear to ear, kind of like a child winning a game. I want waffles, Leanne Murray says. Waffles! And I'm going to make waffles. So again, and feel free, like if you see something that anybody wants to jump in on here, but it really goes back to the fact of finding triggers. This is her thoughts. Finding triggers for joy.
So, because now triggers are like a bad thing. You know, now there is even before you watch like a certain thing on Instagram, this could be a trigger. So now triggers is like a bad thing. So I love that we can flip it. And now we're going to have good triggers.
Yes.
Joy triggers.
That's true. Positive triggers.
You know?
So, so she also talked about how you can do it. And her theory, take into account, this is more of a little bit more autobiographical. You know,
Okay.
Autobiographical. So
Okay.
when she was talking about how she decided to finally find joy, she said that you have to take 2 hours once in a while and not talk to anyone. This is how she says it. She said, don't talk to anyone. She said, you would be so surprised. And she talked about how she had this dream of finally getting this house, and she ended up getting this house. And she said that she would ignore the house because she was so busy trying to get to the house, trying to get to her BlackBerry, you know, trying to do all those things. And she would just ignore it. She said, but so now somebody suggested her, a counselor, she goes into the house that she lives in when no one's there, and she spends 2 hours just walking through life, saying nothing, thinking nothing, but noticing everything. She said, so for example, a drawer handle. Just a drawer handle, you know, and really kind of, and it didn't say it, but the gratitude of it. You know, this office, these walls, those two boys over there,
Yeah. That's
you,
Yeah.
everybody
All
on
them.
this call.
Yeah.
Getting to share this kind of stuff, you know, just being quiet and setting back and kind of appreciating the little things. She said,
I don't know if you could do it. And I don't know if I could. Could you not talk to anyone for 2 hours? Could you not have your phone for 2 hours?
do nothing.
Yes.
It sounds like
Hell.
ancient Chinese torture to me. But I understand it.
Right? I get it. I like the idea behind it. But
I mean-
could you?
Well, I
If
mean,
we gave you that assignment, could
I
you
could
do
have
that?
I could have a private office in there.
I think that was his way of kicking us out.
No, it's quite the opposite. I could have a private office in there, right? I don't want to sit in there by myself.
Oh, got you.
That's how I'm
I
like,
know.
Jenny, you want to sit in here? Jen, you want to sit in here? I mean, I got so desperate I almost thought about Adam one time. And then I woke
You
up and I'm like,
did.
what are you thinking?
You did.
But it crossed my mind, you know. So so it just talked about though, and she looks out her window and she's a tree leaning to the left. She looks at the floor and sees the color of her carpet. You know, we could almost everybody on this call right now. You could probably stop. You could probably take a moment. What if we just did that for 30 seconds
Don't you dare.
and just looked around? Well, I could do 30 seconds, not 2 hours. Probably wouldn't even make it to 30. But looked around and go, you know, what do I see? Where you guys are all sitting right now. Look at your
Yeah.
desk.
Yeah.
Look at your phone. I'll bet you have a phone that works.
Look at your guitar, Catherine.
You know, yeah. I mean, your guitar, your coffee cup, your warm cup of coffee that you might be drinking
Oh,
right now.
delicious.
You know, the conversation. I mean, it's just about gratitude and attitude, and that's kind of what she was suggesting. Very difficult for certain peeps. Yes, I'm one.
Yeah.
But you know, and so for her, she lives down in. She was looking for property down in Carlsbad.
Okay.
Okay. She was looking for property in that whole area, Encinitas, all that, and just it was just so expensive down there that finally she just could not figure it out. And that I want to live here. And her real estate agent told her that, you know what, why don't we go a little bit more outside of the spectrum of where you're looking? So she's like, okay. And so it takes her way to the outskirts of San Diego, to a place called Pine Valley. And all the way up against the nature preserves, she found a house, a little house with 4 bedrooms. And she said she opened up the door, could smell the air. She was, so remember I told you she's a bilateral BK? You know, so bilateral,
okay.
I lost, sorry.
And when did that, but
lost
and you
both
never
of her
said when
legs.
that happened.
5 years old, I think she was born without one and lost the other at 5. So she,
Okay.
you know, and she talked about how she was a Special Olympic skier, and was a top Olympic skier with 2 legs. And, you know, but again, she was divorced, she had a daughter, and she just figured out, where do I want to live? And so she found this place way up against the outskirts of the mountains, and it reminded her of skiing because it had called Pine Valley, huge tall pines and very rural. And so she loved it, and that's what I was saying before, how she started realizing, though, she was falling more in love with that BlackBerry than she was her house, and not enjoying it. She'd walk her kid to school and just be looking at her phone the whole time, and now she's learning to take it in.
I'm sorry, but every time you say BlackBerry, did everyone love their BlackBerry? My BlackBerry was our best friend because it was the first thing, and then it had the first emojis, and it was amazing.
I know.
So sorry, I can't even look at.
I know. She was addicted to that BlackBerry too. So.
I get it. Oh, but no, we're all now with our phones.
I know, it's the same. It is the same.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's funny. I like to just go to restaurants and look at tables, and you can see everybody on one. You know what I mean? But anyway, so here's what she came up with. Number one.
Okay.
She was figuring out. She was so upset that she wasn't enjoying the moment, and so she came up with 7 steps for her to live your joy. Now, this isn't going to work for everybody because this is her particular situation. Number one, she said she wanted to feel like a kid in summer camp. She wanted to breathe. She wanted to smell the pines, you know, and she said so every day when she would walk her daughter to school, when she would walk home, she would always pick up pine cones, and she started collecting pine cones and stuff like that in the house. Number 2, she said that she would take a few moments every day and pray underneath the trees. Go find some magical place, you know, in Pine Valley and play underneath the trees. She also said, you know, I was told myself number 3 was that I was going to fall in love with nature. Again, this lady's very different than me. Very. Number 4, she said she would always play her favorite music while she worked. That was a really big deal. She
That's
believes
us.
that, you know, that happiness and joy, it's a big deal, playing your music, you know, when you work. Next one was to light the fireplace and enjoy just watching the flames and smelling the wood. Number 6 was taking time every evening to step outside and look at the stars in the sky because where she lived it was so clear. And the last one was to every night always wear her woolly slippers.
Okay.
So those were hers. Those were her items. So anyway, so that was basically it, you know, and just reminding yourself not to take everything for granted. And for her, she has to be the kind of person that writes things down. But anyways, so that's kind of a little bit on where we're at with this one. And I do think that if we're not careful, it is hard to find joy. And my question out there is, how do other people out there find joy?
Yeah, tell us, people.
And I want to hit a few people up, and I'm going to pick on a few people because I'm very curious on how they always stay so happy. You know, and
Teresa DiCiola.
Teresa DiCiola has had probably the biggest attitude shift and positivity change, and is just rocking and rolling, and you know, one of the best trainers in the company now. Is she on the call?
There she is.
Teresa, you're such a happy person now. What changes did you make that actually did that?
You know, I was looking at her list of things that that she uses, and it's exactly what I did. You have to just find the little things that make you happy and then kind of exploit them. So, you know, for me, I like to crochet. I like to, you know, make things. So I've, you know, dedicated so much time every day to doing that. The nature part really hit home with me, walking, and not just walking, but looking at what you're seeing as you're passing by and enjoying it. So I don't know, maybe for me, it's just spending more time with myself and feeling okay about that.
That's so good.
I like that. I like that. Catherine Smith, you're paying attention. What stuff makes you happy, Catherine? What stuff brings joy to you? What stuff do you need to make sure that you acknowledge so that you can keep that big smile on your face all the time?
My music. It's the thing. So music for me. And then I have a rose garden. And so spending time in my rose garden about every day, as often as I can, and playing music. Those are the 2.
Isn't it cool when you know what makes you happy?
I know. I'm like,
That's really
how do
cool.
they know?
Catherine knows.
Probably
Adam, what
because they
makes
were
you happy,
quiet.
dude?
Lexapro.
At some point, you have to get off it, though. It worked for me, too.
Lexapro. All right, well, we appreciate the honesty. All right, let's make sure we don't call on Adam again. Oh, man. Mike Duffy, how about you, man? You always you're always a pretty positive guy. I mean, hey, we all hit our ups and downs, but what do you use to stay as positive as possible, dude?
I think everyone who knows me knows that I am head over heels in love with my grandchildren. We just had number 8 this last week. So, my grandkids could call me, or my kids could call me and say, hey, the grandkids have something coming up. And the answer is always yes.
I love it.
But I do have something that I'm excited to share, because I knew I always enjoyed it, but I just kind of figured it out. I love doing transactions in this business with other agents. I get a whole other gear. JP and I just closed one together. And so I'm really, people say, oh yeah, but you got to split the commission. I don't care. It brings me so much joy to recently, I've had the blessing of closing several transactions, and almost all of them have been with other agents. And that I love it. It reminds me of like back in the day playing sports and that teamwork effect. So it's been a whole really new thing for me. And coming out of the old team that I was in, I didn't think I'd want to do that again, but it just charges me up, and it just gets me to a whole nother level.
I love it. I love it. Very cool. Good one. And then, I just had Darlene, and here's another thing. This is the different personality types of people. She said, how about 15 to 20 minutes of alone time? That's what makes me happy. And I forget the times when you have kids and when you can't use the restroom, you can't go to the bathroom, and you can't get in the closet, and you can't do all those things. So I do remember that.
Hey, Chuck, real quick.
Yes.
So when I was talking to Sonia and getting coaching, that was her recommendation, because I have a neighbor called Ding Dong Debbie, who's nonstop in my face all the
she's not on
time.
the
I
call.
couldn't even go on a walk by myself. She was always there. And thanks to Sonia, she told me, you need to stand your ground. Tell her, no, I need my alone time, and I want to walk alone. And that walk alone is like the best thing ever.
Aw,
I like that. I like that. Good job, Sonia. Look at you out there changing lives. Well, all right. So I'm gonna, just because I think this next comment is going to make a big difference for people, and I think this is something that, here's the learning lesson. Finally, some learning lessons. Here we go.
Okay.
So to live your joy, the next section that she has is called confidence. And confidence is joy's main muscle. This is what she calls it. And this is probably my favorite section that I've read so far. So she is impressive. Again, she raised very poor, but one of those super overachievers. She went to Harvard. She got her master's degree at Oxford. She was in the Olympics, the Special Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a lady that went after it. But you can read in this book, there was still massive and major insecurities. Remember, lost 2 legs. She just always felt that she was climbing uphill. And so she was talking about 2 things that I thought were interesting. Number one, she worked for IBM. She was selling imaging solutions.
Okay.
So she was talking to this other guy who was kind of a new to the sales force, and they were going over to a big appointment at a large bank to try to secure their services to get them to use IBM imaging solutions. So she's got her new Datsun B210 or whatever, and she's driving it, and she pulls up, and they get out of the car, and they walk up, and she says, she starts talking about the bank, and she just says, this building is so huge and so grand and so amazing. And she said that part of the reason that it's like that is because she learned when she was on Wall Street during her internships that they try to make buildings big and grand like that because it instills confidence in the people that work there. So by working in a big badass building or doing that, it creates confidence, which therefore returns to having confidence in yourself, which creates more business.
Yes.
So that's kind of what she was talking about. And so she goes up, the guy she was supposed to meet who she loved wasn't there, and there was another guy that she had to go talk to, so she was a little concerned. They come out, and after she does her presentation, she goes through it all with this guy, and they come out, and the guy that she's with is sitting there, and she goes, how did you handle that so well? And she's like, well, what do you mean? And she said, that guy was rude to you. He was disrespectful to you. She goes, I didn't notice any of this, by the way. She goes, he was rude to you. He was disrespectful to you. He was interrupting you. He was calling, talking to you about your education. He even wanted to know what your SAT scores were back in college. Like, she said, I just felt like he was so offensive. And she goes, I never felt that way. She never felt that way about the way this guy was talking to her. She said, and so when she looked back, she goes, I guess you could kind of see it that way. So it was a worldview. But she talked about it, and here's what I really love. Okay, I want everybody to remember this because I think it's so cool.
Okay, we're listening.
It's called the Mickey Mouse theory.
Okay.
Okay, the Mickey Mouse theory. And she said, she goes, I'm a 5'2" black woman with 2 amputated legs. I have been divorced. She said, my confidence is beat up sometimes, all that sort of stuff. But she said, but how I overcame that is when I go to these big meetings, being a rep from IBM, she goes, it's always tall, white men. She goes, every single time that I'm ever going to any call, most of the time it's always tall, white men. And she goes, think how that is, right?
Yeah.
And she didn't let it faze her. And here's why. She goes, a lot of people would be intimidated by walking into that situation. She goes, but I look at Mickey Mouse. And she goes, and how Mickey Mouse is and all that stuff. She goes, let me just say this. She goes, I'm darker than everybody. I'm smarter, if not, or as smart, if not smarter. She goes, and I'm cuter than everybody in that room.
That's awesome.
She goes, so confidence-wise, when I walk into all these rooms, she says, I'm Mickey Mouse walking in there. She goes, so I never feel bad because, but the point of that is we're all unique. And don't ever let yourself be intimidated. She said when she sees like a group like that, or when she's going to see clients, she goes, she gets super excited because it's a chance for her to work out her confidence muscles. And I'm like, all right, here we go. I'm gonna go win that whole crowd over by being Mickey Mouse. So I thought that was a pretty cool theory.
Yeah, that really is.
You like that, Sonia? The Mickey Mouse theory? So it's the world according to Mickey Mouse. And she said, just go ahead. What's your thoughts?
Well, I was just going to add, I just was reading about a coach, a high school coach, who was born with no legs and no arms, and how his life unfolded, and he's able to communicate with these 6 foot, 300-pound guys and tell them, what's going on and how to make things happen. And it was just quite interesting, and it's very much the Mickey Mouse theory. Can you imagine coaching a football team?
Right.
With no arms and no legs?
It ties into this next quote, Sonia. Confidence is when you choose to give in to the pressure around you or take the world where you want to go. You can either let the world control you around you, or you can be that person that says, I'm going to control this situation. I'm going to be Mickey Mouse among all of these, this situation or whatever. So it really is. And I've always thought it was strange too, Sonia, thinking about that. Like John Gruden's probably 5'11", but the average player on his team is probably 6'8". And he's like, you guys need to
He owns it, man. He runs that team.
All of them do.
Yeah.
But it's confidence. It really is confidence. I mean, for all of us, And so when you are with clients, or when you are with people, or when you are building your business, or when you are at a Rotary, or if you're Mike Duffy out, with the city people, or they got nicer suits, or they got this, or they got that, or whatever, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. It just doesn't even matter, And when she says when she finds herself in an uncomfortable situation, she relishes the opportunity to build my muscles and push against the so-called reality that I'm supposed to be in. So I like that. So here's another thing she said. The next section is called, This is a Job For, right? That's what it's called for. This is a job for. And so she talks about Superman and how Superman used to take his time and he used to duck into a phone booth and then he would come out and he'd be Superman, right? And she said, when I feel frazzled, she said, I duck into Tangles. And it's like, well, what's Tangle? It's a place she never even thought she could afford. She goes, it's a hair salon in La Jolla.
That's nice.
She said, so this is a job for her, and she ducks into Tangles.
That's awesome.
And then she would come out of Tangles, and she said I would have my hair just dialed in and all that stuff and ready to go. But I thought that was just an interesting little clip. But that's one of the ways how she finds her confidence.
Yeah, I wonder how do you find your confidence? What do you do? Like when you have to go on stage when it's going to be those 1,000 people at our stuff.
Like public speaking and all that stuff is like when you are on stage and doing it, it really comes down to one thing, and that is being comfortable with your material. Like if you really, or like for me, I feel like I have a passion for it. I feel like for me, I feel like I know what I'm supposed to be doing. So not everybody has that, you know, and then, but I think the people that, because I've had 2 or 3 people that have completely folded on stage before at events, and I've had one literally, there was a couple that was up there, and they leaned over and they said, Chuck, would you like to come up here and ask us questions right now? And I'm like, oh shit, you know, and then I ran up there, but it's because they weren't prepared.
Right. Oh, it's kind of like a listing,
Yeah,
a listing
if-
audition.
A lack of preparation will murder you in public
Yeah.
speaking. It will kill you in public speaking. Or if somebody, you know, and the reason that kids would struggle when they had to go on in classes and do stuff like that is because they don't know the material. If you know the breakup of a cell, you're fine. If you're a little questionable about it, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
So mine is just, you know, an understanding
prepared.
of the material and being prepared, and that comes with just life, right?
Yeah.
And probably some narcissism too. I'm just gonna, no, I'm kidding. I'm
No,
just
it's
kidding.
not.
Oh, Catherine
No, it's
likes
not.
that. She's agreeing. Thanks. Oh, good. So having your hair done, you know, real confidence. But she says, even though your hair is important, it starts from deep
No,
within.
it's one of
You
the.
know, I wonder
get it.
what are the things that make people feel confident?
That's what I want to know. People, hop on.
Sonia, what makes you feel confident when you get in a coaching call?
When I get into a coaching call,
Yeah, like I mean, are you ever nervous that you're going to bumble up a call, or I mean, like, what keeps you going on all that?
oh, absolutely, because I never know what's the other person involved in at that moment, and they all come with their special challenges or where they want to go. So we go where they go, and I have to be prepared. And yeah, there's always that fear that you're not capable of helping them. But I think with practice and years of seeing how people respond when they learn how to take control of their own lives without being told what to do seems to help. And then I just let them find their own way and help guide them, and that seems to help.
And the one word I heard from you, Sonia, is prepared. She
Yeah,
said
that's
that
the
too.
only-
She's
that's the only
prepared.
thing
I mean,
that-
if you have a
yeah.
list, and you know, and you will hear her pull out stuff from notes in the past, and she's like, well, what about this that you said? You're like, oh shit, you know. So you know, you're bringing it back around. And you know what, John Hill, I know you're probably in the middle of something and you're on
That's
the
who I wanted to call
MLS
too.
right now, but John's a pretty confident guy, and
He
a
is.
pretty happy, upbeat guy.
Yeah.
So John Hill, what's
Yeah.
the key to your confidence, dude, and your joy in a sense, but your confidence?
What you drinking?
What you drinking? Oh, you're muted, buddy. There you go.
Okay. The key to my confidence is what do I have to lose?
That's so good.
And if I don't, what do I have to lose? So the consequences always seem more severe than the risk. So I risk it.
Also,
that's-
the mustache helps too.
Adam says the mustache is the real key to your confidence.
Well, I know it's a risk, but you don't risk it, you don't get the biscuit.
Well, you know, it is interesting though, like when John says that, to me that means that John is motivated by negative reinforcement.
Ooh.
He's in a sense like, hey, we all are. You know, he's basically saying
Same.
like if I don't do this right, then what could happen? You know, is that what you're saying, John, or am I mixing it up?
What I'm saying is, if I don't do something, I'll live with regret. If I do it and fail, I tried. I'm okay
What
with
have I
it.
got to lose?
If
Yeah.
I don't try, I will regret the fact that I didn't try.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
And I hate regrets.
And what about you, Jenny?
What about me?
What's your confidence? Where does your confidence come from? Because you act like you don't have confidence, but you do.
I put music on, like if I'm feeling like
down?
I can't do this. Oh God, that type of thing. Putting on a little mask sometimes, putting on your makeup. But
Your mask.
it is a mask. We're lucky we get to wear makeup type of thing.
Tears of a clown.
When no one's around. And no, just really music. That's where I can get it even if I don't have any, like, I just like put it on. It's usually a Barry Manilow, you know, it's a miracle. You know, that's a good one that pumps me up.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, I just think everybody's got their own confidence, and and you know what, like what you said when you put on that mask, and faking it till you make it too. If you tell yourself I'm going to go out and I'm going to be nothing but positive, you can change your attitude.
Totally.
Have you ever been like in the worst mood ever?
Yes.
Like I get like this all the time. I mean, like I get moody at home, and sometimes I can just decide I'm not doing this anymore.
Even though our drive is so short to our office, I can totally change it, and you can too. Because I'm like, I'm not going to walk in there with this. I got to leave that.
Yes.
And I have no reason to be upset. I usually, it's just something, it's probably hormones, but it's.
I think that 3-2-1 rule helped, or that 5-4-3-2-1
Oh,
rule
yeah.
helps too. You know, because like recently too, like I will have moody moments, and it'll be like, you know, where are you on a scale from 1 to 10? You know, and I'll be like, well, I'm not good. And I'm like, wait, I need to have some gratitude. 5-4-3-2-1, life's pretty good. That's why I like how she said, like, even Darlene, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Or just to snap even for 1 minute and go like, life is good. Why are you being a cranky little bitch right now?
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
get happy,
Nailed
be
it.
happy, have some joy.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to ask Adam. Yes. Go ahead, Sonia.
I was just going to say, a lot of times we have people steal our confidence too. Have you ever walked into a situation and one comment just turns you
Every morning when he walks in the studio. Are you kidding me? I'm the thief over here.
Is that you, Adam?
Yeah, why are you late? What are you doing? What are you doing with your life?
Yeah,
Whitehead?
quit stealing Adam's confidence.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. But no, I actually do agree. And that's why we always go back to like, be careful who you hang out with thing, you know.
Mr. Smelly.
Mr. Smelly, that's right, Mr. Smelly, which is the point. So I agree with you, and it always makes me sad, especially in this real estate business. Like I've always said before, the spouses that are not supportive of the people trying to make it in this business, because it is hard. And you need somebody. You're getting no's all day. You're not getting the results you want. You need somebody that has your corner to help build up your confidence too sometimes.
And I think we can help those spouses. I really do. I think we can help those spouses so they can help our agents, because they don't know they're being negative, I don't think. I think they're also trying to be realistic, and they're scared. They're scared for their spouse. They're scared for their family. So I think we need to learn how to, Sonia, Courtney, help them, you know?
Right. Right. It's true. It's true. So,
Well, it's a two-way street. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
No, yeah.
No, it's a two-way street, because the family needs to understand, but the agent also needs to have boundaries. And it's not boundaries with their family, but it's boundaries with their work, with their clients, so that you have a more balanced lifestyle.
That's good.
So it's
True story.
a challenge. I see it a lot, and I can see agents struggling, because every agent on here has focused on being successful. And to do that, you need to have 150-degree focus point on where you're going and what you're doing. And that doesn't leave much room for family. Even though you're doing it for your family doesn't always understand that. So
True.
it's a true tight wire that we walk.
Yeah.
True. So anyway, so she's maneuvering along, you know, working for IBM, and
Okay.
then she gets a call.
Okay.
And the call is from a friend. Now, remember, she went to Harvard.
Yes.
Okay, so she gets a call from one of her friends that she used to study with at Harvard. And it said, hey, I've been working on an election for Bill Clinton, and he was just elected president of the United States. She said, and we're trying to fill so many cabinet and so many job positions. Are you interested in a job? And she's like blown away, like, whoa, like what? And she goes, but I'm living down here in San Diego, you know, I'm doing all this different stuff. She goes, I'm like, I don't want to move to San Diego, pull my daughter out of school, do this, do that. Like, why in the world would I want to do that? And then she starts thinking a little bit more and more over the next day or two, you know, and she says, by the way, if you know anybody else that's interested, let me know too, you know, but whatever. And she's like, okay. And she goes, just send off the resume, fax the resume off, and blah, blah, blah. And she goes, okay, well. And so she decides not to do it the first day. And then she comes around and she goes, you know, how many opportunities do you get to come from where I came from?
Yeah.
This is what she's saying. And go work in the friggin' White House, right? Literally the most powerful place in the entire planet.
And we have to remember how exciting of a time that was.
Yeah, and that's what she said. She
Yeah.
goes, being, you know, who she was and where she was
Yeah.
from and all that stuff. You know, Clinton was literally like the dream to accomplish the policies and all the things that, you know, that she wanted for her life and to leave her mark. So she's like, I didn't want to do it. You know, she goes, but finally I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. She goes, and I don't do things half-ass. She goes, so I decided I was going to put together the best resume I could.
Okay.
She goes, so I spent a day putting together this resume. It was, you know, this and that and this and that and gorgeous. And she goes, and then I sent it off to the number, she faxed it, to the number that they told me to send it off to. She goes, and then she goes, I kind of forgot about it. And then about a month later, she goes, I got a call from a lady named Marion. She goes, and so Marion called me. She said, hey, I just want to let you know, we got your resume. You know, we'd love to figure out a way that we can talk in the next few days, you know, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, okay, well, that sounds great, you know. And so she hangs up, she goes, okay, great, hangs up the phone. And the girl hangs up the phone. And so she's like, okay, you know, and a couple days go by, 3 days go by. She goes, I didn't hear anything. She goes, and then another day goes by, I didn't hear anything. She goes, I just decided to call her. She said, so I called back to the White House, not even knowing where I'm calling.
Oh my God.
I'm trying to reach Marion, right? So she fights and tries to find her way and finally finds out where she's located and calls, and she's on the phone for like, on hold for like 15 minutes. Marion never picks up. The lady finally says, well, she's not here, you know, so she goes, okay, fine. Calls back the next day. Marion doesn't pick up, you know, nothing. She just can't do it. Calls back the next day. And finally she picks up the phone and she's like, hi, you know, she goes, I'm so sorry, we're so busy and blah, 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 blah. And she goes, okay, well, you know, I wanted to talk to you about, you know, potentially, you know, doing something. And she's like, okay. She goes, so great, well, let's set up a phone call. And she goes, well, how about this? This is what Bonnie says. She goes, how about I fly out there and I'll come meet with you? So she's like, and she goes, and she's like, okay, well, that sounds great, you know. So she goes to get a plane ticket, and the plane tickets themselves, because it's 1 day notice, the plane tickets themselves are more than half of her salary where she works, but she says, I'm doing it. She flies all the way back to D.C. She lands, and Thurgood Marshall dies. She said, which, you know, the Black Supreme Court Justice, and she goes, a huge deal. Okay. She goes, so there's this huge funeral. No one's in the office. No one's there. She said, so you know what I did? She sat in the lobby for 3 or 4 days waiting for Marion to show up. She said, I saw Al Gore walk by, I saw Tipper Gore, I saw Hillary, I saw all these different people. And finally, she sees Marion. So her and Marion go in and they talk together. And then so she's like, you know, she says it's a great talk. And she goes back home. And then 2 weeks later, she gets a call and they said, well, we would like you to serve, you know, as a director on the National Economic Development Task Board, you know, or whatever, full-time job here. So she says, okay. And she said, and I ended up moving to Washington, D.C. for 1.5 years and doing some of the most exciting work I've ever done in my entire life. And she said, and so it was great, you know, and I did it, and I never regret it. And we came back to San Diego. My daughter's back in school down here and all that. She goes, and I'll never forget this too. 4 years later, she was in a hotel, I think she said, in Houston on a business thing. And a guy was there, and they were talking, and the guy said, well, yeah, I actually got contacted by the Clinton administration to serve, you know, on one of the committees. And she goes, so they talked to me. She goes, but I waited months and months and months, and they never called me back. And she goes, and I knew at that point I was doing something right. Yeah. You know, because he never called and never followed up, but she called and called and called and flew there and did, you know what I mean? So she actually, she was saying at the beginning, like, you can let the world mold you or you can mold it the way you want. She just went after it and got it. So I thought that was cool.
That is cool.
So that's that, and got that, you know, a couple of good minutes squeezed in. Let's see, what else do we got? A couple other things. The next section that she was talking about how she had 4 brothers and sisters. She was one of them.
Oh, okay.
And she would come home from school, and she was very young, I think 3rd grade or something. And because she was the first one to get home from school, her mom required her to start dinner. So she says, I'll never forget this night. So she's like, I was watching cartoons and watching TV because I loved it. No one was in the house. The only time I had it to myself. She said, and we had a really tiny front yard, but it had grass and flowers and stuff. And he said, I never realized till later how much that meant to my mom because she came from the ghetto of Queens.
Oh, okay.
And she goes, it took me years to figure that out. But she said, and then her mom came home and she's scrambling around like, oh my God, she heard the car. She didn't start dinner, so she's throwing all this stuff in, doing everything she can, you know, and getting it all going while her mom's putting everything away. And then everything works out fine. But her mom pulls out a little pamphlet. And in the pamphlet, there's a picture of a one-legged snow skier on it. And she says, we're living in San Diego, you know, at this time, you know, at this point, right? Because they'd already moved to San Diego from Queens. And she says, pulls out a picture.
Oh, so they went as a family to San Diego.
Correct.
First. Oh, okay.
She goes, pulls out a picture of a one-legged skier, and on the title of the skier, it says, if I can do it, you can do it. And she said, I live in San Diego. I'd really never, ever seen snow in my life. She goes, but at that moment, as we were eating that dinner, she goes, I felt joy, and I knew that my life was about to change.
Wow.
And that's where I'm at in the book. So that's where it's at right now. So
she's getting ready.
She's getting ready for something exciting. So anyways, so that's just live your joy. That's, you know, some of the stuff. And there's a lot more to it, but I'm going to try to find the talking points to it a little bit more. But anyways, so that's it.
That's good.
That's where we're at.
I thought of a lot of things.
And Janie Kristofi asked me to make sure that we gave her some biographies. So this is kind of a semi-biography for Janie, all right?
Yeah.
And then I do want to add this, though. We are going to be adding a couple of other really cool books in soon. really cool books. We talked about one of them. You know, Men Are From Venus.
Oh, yeah.
Or Women Are From Venus. Men Are From
Yeah.
Mars. Got a couple other ones coming
Yeah.
up. But any comments out there? Sonia, what do you think? What do you think about this particular book? It's very different than the other ones. It's not instructional. It's more of a story. How do you feel about this sort of book?
I think I love biographies. I just feel that you can learn so much from other people's experiences and what they've gone through. Sometimes I think my life hasn't been rough enough to have some of those cool experiences, but then I'm quite happy that it hasn't been that rough too. I think.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, I was going to say, I love the idea of looking for joy in your life. I think we all find it in different ways and different places. The nature, I think I'm always encouraging people to get outside and spend time in nature, whether it's playing golf, swimming, hiking, or just a lot of times I'll give homework or just go out and sit by your pool and do nothing for a half hour, just to get grounded again, put your feet on the ground, walk through the grass, do whatever you have to. It is so important. You know, there's so many ways. I think success, being confident, also gives you happiness and joy. Once you feel that, I know when I feel successful, I'm giddy. When I see success from the agents, I get so excited when I see them in the top 10 or in the top 20, or they get their, you know, first multi-million-dollar award or whatever. So I think that it's a good thing for us to stop, take time, know what we want, and find that joy in life. Life's too short.
I'm going to feel really bad with my last closing statement here because
Okay.
this stuff's difficult for me. Like, because I kind of like the more pragmatic to-do list stuff, but she did say one thing in the book that I thought I'd share, Sonia, and I know this isn't about joy. This is a little bit more about like this opportunity that she took with Clinton and all this sort of stuff. And she said when she was in college, she worked on Wall Street. And when she worked on Wall Street, she learned something that I thought that I really liked, because I've always thought, like, you either go for it in life or you sit back and you take and accept the safe and secure, right? Or we spend our lives, instead of going and getting something, we preserve what we have. Do you agree? I mean, that really is, there's the go-getter and there's the person that wants to preserve what we have. And I think we're all guilty of being the one that preserves what we have, so we don't take those chances.
Yeah, and what have we got to lose?
And she said, she was talking about investments. This is what I'll leave off with everybody, but she learned something in Wall Street, she said, that she'll never forget. She said, when you have a portfolio of stocks or, you know, whatever that may be, she said she looks at it in 3 components. Number one, you take a small piece or a good-sized piece and you make those the most solid, strong, blue chip, protective stocks you can possibly buy. She said, and then you get the medium ones that are pretty damn safe. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. You know, it's stuff that you can absolutely make sure that you're going to be pretty protected in those.
Right, non-risk.
And then you have the last little piece, and that's the shit that you go for it with. That's the aggressive stock. That's Adam with his Bitcoin. And,
hell yeah, it is.
You know, and all of that sort of stuff. But it's taking it and rolling those dice. But if only you can figure out a way to roll those dice with the top and still protect the safe and secure and the moderate in your life, but still take those chances at the top. Because without taking those chances, all we do is just continue to be safe and secure and watch Netflix.
Yeah.
You know, and I just want to encourage everybody, that is one little piece that was in there that, you know, take what you can and protect yourself, but keep that crazy little piece for some badass thing that could present itself at any time. So I thought that was a cool little investment thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's Bonnie St. John.
I like it.
And we'll be back to finish it up next week, and I'm going to come up with a little bit more discussion points for next week on this stuff too. And we'll go from there. Adam, anything you want to add?
Thanks for being here, people, and feel free to like, comment, and subscribe on all of these social medias. It really helps us stay employed.
Thanks, dude. Okay. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Go out there, have a great week, right? Make something good happen. Be joyful, be happy, right? Confidence starts with the end. Flex that joy muscle. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, Jenny.
Bye.